With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool.
Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
The Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE. It's electrified.
Boogie, woogie, woogie.
So you can boogie woogie woogie into the forest.
Boogie.
Boogie woogie woogie through the mud. Or boogie woogie woogie to work, where you boogie woogie woogie down the hall to your boss's office to tell him you quit.
Sure got the boogie.
Then you boogie woogie woogie to the elevator as he boogie woogie woogies after you, begging, please, take me with you.
Boogie.
The electrified Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE. Learn more at Jeep.com. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. But today I'm actually not hosting this episode. This is a throwback to a handful of years ago when Kurt was the host, to Julie and Matt Urbanski. They were on before this episode, and this is their second time on. And they're talking about world travel. They're thru-hikers. They're traveling the world. They have an infant son, and they're talking about how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and how they're pulling it off. I think that's probably the biggest question in a lot of folks' mind is, what kind of adventures are they having with with a young child, and how are they doing this? Because they left their 9-to-5s. They left their whole life to kind of pursue this lifestyle. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Even if you don't have plans to travel the world with a young family, I can at least show you that it's possible, and your goals might seem a lot more achievable. Who knows? But I think you'll enjoy this episode. But also, before we get started, I did want to say you will see yesterday we had an announcement for who won our Adventure Grant. We've been running an Adventure Grant for the last application, that is, for the Adventure Grant for the last few months. And we just released the winners, the 3 winners. So if you're on that list, we will be reaching out. But if you applied and you don't know if you won, listen to that episode. It's only a couple minutes long, and we announced the winners. And we will be hearing and learning more about them very soon. We're going to share a little bit more about them on Instagram soon, so be following us there. And we're very excited to be able to announce these winners. Looking forward to hearing more about their trips. All right, let's go ahead and jump in.
Hey friends, I have Matt Urbanski with us today, and his wife Julie is going to be joining us soon. She is putting their son to bed right now for his nap, and so she's going to join us in a little bit to talk about the Urbanski lifestyle, and man, is this a neat lifestyle. Matt and Julie, a few years back, decided that they didn't want to live life according to all the normal ways that most people do, and they decided to live a minimalist lifestyle full of travel and ultra running and long trail hiking, and they continue that lifestyle today. I'm excited to visit with them about what that is like, especially with their young son, Pavo. So, Matt, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Kurt.
Yeah. So you were on the show on episode 234. And that's been a while back, so I know a lot of stuff has happened. I want to tell the listeners, though, if you want to get the first part of the story, we'll overlap a little bit with this show, but the first part of the story in more details, that will be more about episode 234. So go to the AdventureSportsPodcast.com website, click the episode categories, do a quick search for Urbanski, and you'll find that episode 234. Or, of course, you can search for episode 234, but that's the easiest way to get to it. And Matt, it's been a little while since we last talked, so catch us up. What's been going on?
Well, our kid can now walk. He's 2.5. Pavo is awesome, and he's so I keep score. He obviously doesn't know where he's been, but he's been to 5 continents, 17 countries, and 27 U.S. states already. Probably had
awesome.
over 60. Yeah, I probably had over 60 flights, and yeah, we just keep going. We're in Colorado right now doing some cool mountain stuff, and we'll be heading over to Europe next month. So yeah, it's just the life he knows, but he's had some cool experiences already, which is a big part of what we're trying to give him a cool life.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a lot about what that looks like, put some flesh on that. But I also want to make sure that we get to talk about ultra running quite a bit, because that's become a big part of your life as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Happy to talk about it. Julie and I both got into ultra running probably 7 years ago, and it just continues to ramp up where every summer now, actually almost the entire year, a lot of our travel is based around where are the cool races, where are the good places to run. And so, yeah, that's a big reason why we're going to the Alps this summer. It's a big reason why we were up in the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming last week. And almost every bit of our travel can be traced back to some sort of cool race somewhere in the world.
Well, I know there are a lot of people who are sitting here going, okay, so we got a couple of trust fund kids here who had a baby and they're just burning through their parents' money, right?
Yep. Far from the truth. No, that's a good question, and I think a lot of people always want to know about that, but often people are afraid to ask us, and we're really proud of it. And so I'm glad you bring that up, because I think that what we do is way more accessible to people than they realize. The short of it is we worked corporate jobs till we were 30. I'm almost 38 now. We saved up, we invested. Thankfully, the work we did was in the investment field, so we learned about what to do with money, and our money has worked for us, which is awesome. And then once we had our son, we stopped doing the corporate world. I had started a coaching business for runners, and it's grown to the point now where it's a fast growing startup business that we do remotely and pays our bills, and at least gives us a glimmer of hope in the future that maybe it's something that's big, that gives us all the more freedom to do really some bigger adventures somewhere down the road.
That's really cool. I brought that up because I knew that you guys were self-funded, and I just want our listeners to hear that. It is something that everybody can do if you get a little bit of planning in the right angle. And your angle, if I remember correctly, Matt, from the first interview, the coaching business was almost accidental. It just kind of took off, and now it's become a nice little stream of income for you.
That's exactly it. I went back to school just kind of because I thought it would be a cool thing to learn. I got a nursing degree, and I thought it would be a fun thing to know about. And during the time I was in school, Julie made me a website for coaching. I started picking up new runners and helping them along their journey to being a better runner. And by the time I finished school, I had a full roster. And then over the last year, we've grown our company. It's called Team Run Run. We've grown it to the point where we now have 24 coaches that coach with us and close to 100 athletes. And it's this really cool thing that's just all about connecting runners with awesome mentors and coaches. And our primary work now is just organizing, maintaining this cool, fast growing community of runners. So we plan and think about things from a business perspective, but it wasn't this great vision that we had to put into play over the course of 10 years. It's this thing that just has grown organically, and new opportunities present themselves to us, and we just keep rolling with it, and it's fun.
That's so fun. I think it's cool when that happens, and I don't know if you can count on it always happening, but when you put a little energy into what you really are passionate about, and then it catches on, and you can just watch it grow, and it becomes something that is valuable in return. It's so awesome when that works out, and I think it often does. I think that it's not as simple as just saying, well, I love this, so I'm going to hang out a shingle. There more has to go into it.
I definitely agree. And we didn't have, where our company is now is not where we envisioned it 5 years ago when we started, but I like to think of ourselves as people that try and stay open to the different ideas and opportunities that come up, and being able to take advantage of those opportunities when they arrive. So I feel like we've just had our eyes open, and we're like, oh wow, this would be a really good thing for us to do next, and this would be a really cool thing to try and accomplish and to put our energy into. And So that's just sort of how we operate with life. I mean, that's how we end up hiking the trails that we've done and all the other stuff. So,
Well, when Julie joins us, I want to make sure
I'm pausing us right now because Julie is just walking in to join us.
Oh, very cool. Hello, Julie. Welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast.
Hi, how's it?
She just successfully got our son Pavo down for a nap. So now we get to all talk together, which is fun.
Right on. Well, I thought we'd start out by talking about ultra running a little bit, and then I want to dive back into the lifestyle and what you have been up to lately. But Matt, why don't you just kind of give us a quick rundown of some of the ultra run types events that you do so that people get a feel for what we're talking about?
Sure. For example, I would say some of the big ones that maybe people have heard of. It's a really small, ultra running is a small community, but it's got some key events that are sort of like the Boston Marathon of ultra running. So like in the last few years, I've run the Western States 100-mile race, which starts in Squaw Valley, California, and finishes close to Sacramento. Auburn, California. Yeah. I ran the UTMB. It's the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, which is a 105-mile race around Mont Blanc in the Alps, where it starts in France, runs into Italy, then into Switzerland, and finishes back up in Chamonix. Most recently, last weekend, I ran a 100-mile race in the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming, which was a crazy mud fest slog through the night and cool experience. All of them they're challenging. A lot of people like to say ultra running, or 100-milers in particular, it's like you live a lifetime in a day where you get really high highs, really low lows, and they're just so rewarding when you come out the other end.
So how many do you think that you've run now?
In the 100-mile category, I've completed 12 of the 14 that I've started. And I'm proud to say it's been quite a few years since I've had any that I didn't finish. I've got my head on straight and I know how to finish these now.
I can't imagine. I enjoy running, but I'm not a strong runner, and I would like to be a strong runner, and I think a lot of people can relate to that too. The ability to go 100 miles to a lot of people just sounds like it's completely out of reach. And I'm curious about it. When you started running, did you start out saying, I'm going to do ultras? Or was it like, well, I wonder if I could run a little farther and a little farther,
Yeah, I've had the experience of being a lifelong runner. I ran with my dad when I was 5 years old and did track and cross country through high school and college and transitioned to road marathons. And then, gosh, it was a decade ago that Julie and I heard about, actually, we were hiking the PCT when we met some people that were out training for this 100-mile race called the Angeles Crest 100 down in Southern California. And we thought, holy crap, this is amazing. People do this. And so the seed was planted while we hiked the PCT. And then it wasn't until 2008 that we both did a 50-mile trail race. And then over the years, the idea just grew on us. And then the more and more you get into the scene, the more and more it's like, oh, tons of people do this. All kinds of people do this. Old people, young people, heavy people, skinny people, everyone, all sorts of people can finish. It's largely a game of having a really strong mental game and also knowing some of the logistics of like making sure you get enough calories and you stay hydrated and you know how to take care of blisters and all those kind of things. That it's not just running. It's more like, how do I manage myself and my journey well for 24 to 34 hours so that I can keep going and get to the end. And all sorts of people figure it out. So it sounds like it's this crazy out of reach thing, but I would challenge anyone that thinks they couldn't do it, just go to the finish of a 100-miler and just sit at the end for like the last 2 hours before the race is over. And you'll see all sorts of people coming in. You're like, wow, they can do it. I can do it.
Well, let me tell you a little bit of my story, and hopefully our listeners will relate to that, and then I would love to hear your response. I do a lot of adventure sports, obviously, but recently mountain biking has been a real focus for our family. We've had a lot of fun with it. And then I started skiing in the fall, and I said, wow, all of that training in mountain biking didn't translate very well to skiing. And then I was like, well, that's a different use of muscle. And then the ski season's over. We started mountain biking again, and that was a lot of fun. But my oldest son came home from college, and he says, Dad, I want to do a lot of 14ers this summer. And I love 14ers, so we said, okay, we'll just make it a 14er summer. Why not? I love climbing, haven't been doing it as much as I would like. So we did our first 14er last weekend, and guess what? Wow, mountain biking training doesn't really translate to hiking up a 14er. And we made it to the top in pretty good time. It was a short one. It was only 4 miles up and about, maybe 4.5 up, 4.5 back. We were trying to beat the weather. And we made it to the top and started racing down because the weather was on us. And our knees gave out about halfway down. And I thought, oh, you got to be kidding me. So we limped the last 2-3 miles back to the trailhead. It was only like an 8.5, 9 mile hike, right? Of course, it's a very strenuous hike. Don't get me wrong. It's a class 3 14er. Right. But the point is, injury shut us down in only, let's call it 5 hours. I don't know what it was. Now, you're talking about doing something to your body for 24 to 36 hours. So this is where I want your perspective. How do you manage to do it without having those sorts of my joints swelled up and locked up, you know?
Well, I've said all so far that it's largely a mental game and a lot of managing logistics, but you really want to prepare for them too. And so, rather than if your focus was on hiking 14ers, hiking training for a few months would make it much more likely that you don't have those injury issues on your hikes. And it's the same with ultra running. So the longer you're consistently training, the more specific your training is to the types of races and events that you're interested in, the better. And just getting yourself physically prepared also for the challenge ahead. And then also notice, kind of having a sense of what the boundaries are, the signals your body tell you. So if you're starting to feel some things in your knees, maybe it's time to pull out your poles and, give your knees a little bit of a break, or, kind of like, oh, I should probably back off my effort right now. Or maybe I need to sit and just rest for 20 minutes and eat some food and relax and then carry on. I feel like there's a lot of those kind of things that you got to listen to what your body tells you and prepare. And the more you prepare, the better your odds are that you have less problems to overcome. I think that in 100 milers, it's largely a matter of there will be problems that come up, and then it's just how well you're able to stay calm and cool and solve them. But the better you prepare, the less problems there are that do show up, and usually the less severe, they're not as severe.
Well, I knew that your answer would be around that. And here's the part that is kind of funny to me is that we had been very, very active on the mountain biking and had become quite strong and quite fit, but it didn't translate. It just didn't translate. So I guess more cross-training would be in order then.
Yeah, and I would just say more hiking.
Just more hiking.
Yeah, I mean, those are the muscles and the motions that your body is going through to do 14ers, and just spending more time out hiking with some gear on and trying to simulate without going so hard that you're getting injured, the better. I mean, I think the best thing for being better at hiking is to hike more, not to swim more or to bike more or, that kind of thing. I mean, there are some strength training things that if you have extra time, I think they're great to do, but the more specific you're training to the goal you're after, the better your odds are of succeeding with the goal you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm sure you're 100% correct because I'm living proof, right?
Whenever we do through hikes, the first week we're like newborn fawns when we get up out of our tents, every morning. Because our legs are just so sore and we're just not used to it. But then 2 weeks in, we're just machines, and so it's just getting those gears going and getting the legs used to downhills, uphills, switching gears.
And even if we were running well before a through hike, it's still not that it doesn't translate the same to say, we were running an hour a day every day for months leading up to a through hike. It's just not the same as walking up 10 to 12 hours a day with a pack on. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there are some things that help, like the running. It would have been better to run than to do nothing, but it's not the same thing to prepare us for carrying a bunch of weight on our back and hiking mountains.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. If you're like me, when you go to think of what you want for dinner, you forget every single meal you've ever had for your entire life that you've ever liked. You can't even think of a single recipe. Not sure how that happens or why, but HelloFresh is here to help. Make mealtime easy with delicious recipes made with fresh, wholesome ingredients, delivered right to your door. No lines, no hassles, no trying to think of what to cook. Just great tasting meals you can whip up and enjoy in the comfort of your own home. HelloFresh makes it easy to eat what you love. You can customize select meals, swapping out proteins or size, even add a protein or add a veggie. And now you can even upgrade for organic chicken or organic ground beef or on whatever you want. So there's all sorts of customization going on. And by the way, I did use HelloFresh with our last pregnancy. I've told the story before. I ordered a bunch of these meals, had them ready to go, not so that we were, eating out every night, but we had meals ready to go at the house that I could whip up really quickly that were delicious and nutritious, and it was what my wife wanted. We selected it all beforehand. It was great, and actually really helped ease some of that stress with the first few weeks of having a baby. It was awesome. So if you want to try HelloFresh, go to hellofresh.com/ASP60 and use the code ASP60 for 60% off plus free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/ASP for Adventure Sports Podcast. ASP60. Use the code ASP60 for 60% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Get ready, because Scott's is taking over Daylight Saving Time. It's such a big event that we're calling it Day-Long Saving Time. And now it's got real savings. In fact, it's the biggest deals of the year. Audacious? Absolutely. So don't wait. Stock up early and you'll be able to save up to $20 on Scott's Triple Action and Easy Seed products today at the Home Depot and Lowe's. Offers available March 9th through 22nd at select U.S. stores while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See store for exact offers.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift the Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Ooh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
Yeah, good point. And I was actually even thinking, had I just run more, because I run some, had I just run more, then the 14er would have probably been a better experience. But here's a question for you. This is specific. Part of the reason we were rushing down is because we lost our weather. And it got very, very, very cold and very, very wet with literally 70 to 80 mile per hour winds. So we were getting blasted. And my knees got very, very cold just before the pain set in. And I thought, I wonder, had I insulated my knees, if I would have had a different result.
I think that probably would have increased your odds of not having the knee issues. It's not a guarantee, but I would think so. Like, I had an experience running a 100 miler in North Carolina back in April where my body was breaking down after 80 miles, which is normal, but then it got cold and started raining more, and my hip flexors just tightened up so much that then I was forced to slow down even more, and then I tightened up even more, and the last 10 miles were just the worst. And I think had I put on my nice rain pants and a little more gear, I wouldn't have tightened up so much, and then I wouldn't have slowed down so much. It would have still hurt, but it wouldn't have been to the magnitude that it was had I just been better prepared for the weather. And stupid me, I had this stuff, I just didn't put it on.
Well, that was me too. I had rain gear in my backpack, and I thought, I don't feel bad. This feels great. I'm still going. But then it caught up with me. Yeah, that was me exactly.
Julie always tells me that, she gives me a fairly hard time about those decisions. So in order to avoid those kind of comments after the fact, I have been getting better about it. Like at Bighorn last weekend, I actually put on all my cold gear, and I think it made a positive difference as I was going through the mud in the middle of the night. So it's good to have a wife who will tell you about the things you don't do well sometimes.
Well, Julie, you need to come on our next 14er so you can remind us to take care of things.
Do it.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. One of our patrons on Patreon It's a tongue twister for me. I had a question for you specifically, which is related to this, but instead of just how to avoid injury on a long run, I think it's how to avoid injury when training to build up for longer runs, the type of injuries that knock us out of a sport for extended periods of time.
I mean, the biggest source of injuries in running are going to be overtraining injuries, basically doing too much or doing too much too soon before your body has responded positively to the stress. I mean, anytime you want to get better at something physically, there's a cycle where you apply a new stress and then you rest, and then your body adapts and comes back stronger to that stress in the future. And the biggest mistake people make is they apply the stress, but then they don't rest, and they just keep applying more and more stress, and eventually the machine breaks. So it's really respecting that cycle of including rest into the process, and knowing that you'll get more gains if you take some rest after you apply the new stress. I would say this is a good time to say also, if you were going to try something that was pretty new or pretty far outside of your sort of realm of past experience, I think working with a coach is a great idea. I mean, we've just seen so many positive results as people just have someone else there along the journey and like saying, hey, go do this today, do this, that you should really take a rest today. Have you noticed your knees have hurt for the last 4 days? Like, let's take a rest day. So I think just involving others and having a plan, but then also making sure that you get the rest you need and you listen to your body. I think those are the key things to avoiding injury through the training cycle. I mean, there's some things that you just can't avoid. Like, people get injured on trail runs all the time. It happens. I was just meeting up with a woman yesterday who ran on a world championship trail team and hadn't fallen for 2 years and took this huge digger and like cut in her knee with multiple stitches down to the tendon. You could see the patellar tendon. It was gross. Yeah, and I mean, those kind of things happen, and I don't know how you avoid those. She's a pro runner, and that stuff still happens. But the bigger thing is the overtraining and not resting well enough, and then having the body break down.
I'd say the other thing we see a lot is go for consistency over big, huge training runs or workouts. Like, we have some, people get excited. They're like, oh, I did 20 instead of 10, but then I can't run for 4 days because I wrecked myself on the 20 miler. And then they got to recover for 4 days, and then they get back into it. They feel bad. They go for 10 miles, and it's like, oh man, we got to just cut it back. Aim for 5 lower days a week, and your body just responds so much better to consistency versus huge clumps of stuff. At least that's what we've seen in a lot of our runners. If they can just be consistent, even if you're not even doing workouts, just being consistent is a bigger thing to avoiding injuries, I think.
Yeah, that's really a good word.
I could piggyback on that and just say, in general, with endurance sports, it's way more about the long term than the short term. And, people, maybe they watch a movie about the Barkley Marathons or Western States, and they get all excited and they want to go do it. And there's this binge training cycle, and it just doesn't work. And the best way to improve with endurance sports is to do it for a long time, to do it consistently, and to just have a nice, steady, gradual build up. You avoid injuries, and in the long run, people can see huge gains, and it's really cool to watch and be part of.
Yeah, I call it the slow drip method versus the binge method.
Well, I'm a binger, always have been, and that's always gotten me in trouble. But let's take someone like me just for fun. Cardiovascular is doing okay. Like I said, a lot of biking and stuff, and so feel fairly strong, but I'm not running much. So if I decided that I was going to train for a big event, what's the protocol?
I would say the first goal is to get you up to where you're running 5 or 6 days a week. And the biggest thing I would tell you right away is to keep the effort level easier than what you think. I'd say go run a snail pace for the first couple weeks, but get up to where you're running 5 or 6 days a week and not feeling beat up from it. And then once you get the routine down where you can actually run that many days per week without feeling bad or beat up from it, then we start injecting some new stressors to the routine. And it kind of depends on what your goals would be and what you're trying to accomplish. But a lot of it could involve just some like short, quick sprints, whether they're uphill or flat, and really get your body to become more efficient so that it takes less energy to go faster. And by doing that over like short sprints, it translates over into all the longer distances. So, I mean, I would just say the biggest thing we would want to accomplish first with anyone like what you or, kind of what you're saying is building the consistency first. And that usually requires running in an effort that you think is way too easy. Because the consistency and the frequency is where you're going to get a lot of your initial gains. So that would be the first goal I would want you to accomplish.
Well, how long should I run? And I said long instead of far on purpose, but how long should I run when I'm starting out?
I would say, and I would want to see how you respond to this, but I would say you start out with just like 20 to 40 minutes at a time for the first week. Say you try and run 5 days the first week and you run 20 to 30 minutes each of those runs and just see how it goes. And you keep it nice and calm and easy. And if after a week you've run 5 days of a half an hour each and you feel great, then we add a sixth day, or we start adding some duration, maybe taking it up closer to an hour on one or two of the runs. And we just keep, it's like you don't want to apply too many new stresses at once. So the first thing would be getting the frequency up. And then the next thing is probably getting the duration up. And then if all those things go well, then we start injecting new challenges, like whether it's different speed or different hill things, to work on different physiologic systems. And a lot of that would be dependent upon what you want out of the sport. If you're trying to run a fast 5K, it's going to be different than if you want to complete a 100-mile trail race.
Sure. Well, I'm just going to throw this out there for fun, and we'll change the topic. Thank you very much for all the detail and the personal coaching. I think it's very valuable, and I need to take careful notes because I always overdo it. That's just what I do. But, personally, the thing that always has amazed me is when I'm doing a 14er. So maybe it's 3,500, 4,000 vertical feet and going to high altitude and back, and maybe it's a half marathon length, 13 miles or something like that. And then an ultra athlete comes by and they're running the 13er or the 14er. And I see someone run up the mountain and run back down again when everybody else on the mountain is just struggling to get to the top and back. You know what I'm saying? And so that has always blown my mind. And I know, Matt, that you're one of the ones who could run to the top and back down again. How long does it take to get that fit, to be able to do that?
I would say that's a tough answer in the sense that certain people genetically are just like they start at a higher point than others. So it depends on each person. You find out pretty quickly when you're working with an athlete kind of where they're starting out on the spectrum. And then it also depends on how into the sport they are and resistant to injury they are. So how fast can you ramp up? But one of the really cool things about trail running is you don't have to go fast to be able to cover a lot of ground and see a lot of really cool things that if you're walking with a 30-pound pack, you just don't get to cover that much ground. I mean, it's similar to like if you're biking. I think you can cover more ground, and I just think it's cool. Like if you could get to where you can even cover 12 to 15 minute mile pace, and have that be comfortable out on the trails, you're just gonna be able to see so much more in the time that you have to be out on the trails, and you can get to some really cool places on foot. And you get out there and you think, man, I ran. It's just a cool feeling to get up to the top of mountains or up on a ridge line and to know that you got there on your own with power and just your own legs and lungs. And so I would just encourage anyone that is interested in exploring the backcountry that you can, if you get a little faster with your running, a little more fit with your running, it just opens up so many more options to you, which is a cool thing to have in your toolkit.
Yeah, that's really exciting stuff. I think that's a good time for us to segue into your lifestyle. So, Julie, let's switch to you a little bit because I talked to Matt a lot while you were putting Pavo down. But a few years ago, Julie, before we started, I mentioned a few years ago that you and Matt decided that you wanted to travel and offer Pavo different experiences than just the traditional stay in one place and work all the time experience. And Matt detailed how many countries and continents Pavo's already been to, which is just remarkable. What makes all of this possible, Julie? How do you pull this off?
Well, I always think of nuts and bolts right away, not philosophically. So Matt's more the philosophical one. So in terms of like the finer details, obviously having the online business like helps financially. Like if we had jobs where we were tied to one place, this wouldn't really happen. But having had the online business, that obviously makes it happen. And then I don't know. We just we dabble in both, though. I would say, like we spent 6 months in Seattle this past year, 7 months, I think, just to like settle for a bit. And it was kind of like, yeah, this is cool, but now we're ready to be done. And so now we've been traveling since January, and it hasn't gotten old yet, but I could see it getting old. Like maybe in like 6 months, we'll be like, okay, let's try and like settle for a little bit again. And then after that, we'll get tired of it and we'll go travel again. I don't know, it's a little rambling.
No, you're shaping the picture. Let's dive into a little bit of detail. Where do you sleep at night? Where do you stay when you travel?
Either Airbnb, hotel, family and friends. We have like sort of a mental list we always know of that we have like in our, kit that we can look through to book a place or find a place to stay. We just kind of patchwork it, I call it, like where we know we want to. Let me step back a little. We always have big pillars, I would say, which are like the races that we want to go to. That's what helps us decide where to go to. Is usually Matt's races, or maybe one of my races, or one of our athletes if they have a big race, and we're like, yeah, we want to go to that race and help you out and go there because it's cool. So we set those big pillars in place and then like work from there. Like, okay, we know we're going to stay there for a week for that race. That's around this cool place. Why don't we go visit that? Or, it looks like lodging's really cheap in like this city. Let's go check that out right next door. I don't know.
I'm thinking to jump in and give a real world example. So when we left Seattle in January, the reason we knew where we were going to go first. I had signed up for a race in Hong Kong. It was a 100K in Hong Kong at the end of January. So it's like, all right, we know we're going to go to Hong Kong. And then we have one of our really good friends who's from Indonesia, and she was going to go to Bali for 2 weeks in February. And we thought, oh, we would love to go hang out with our friend Dion in Bali for 2 weeks. So we knew we were going to go to Bali in 2 weeks in February. But then we had 3 weeks in between the race and Bali. So it's like, well, where do we go? What do we want to do? And so we ended up actually flying to Australia and spent 3 weeks in Australia, came back to Bali, spent 2 weeks there. And then we happened to find a cheap flight that we could book through rewards points from Auckland, New Zealand to San Francisco. So we thought, all right, let's go to New Zealand for the last week because we have a free flight home. So that's how we ended up planning like a 2.5 month trip. It was like, we know we're going to Hong Kong for the race. We want to see a friend in Indonesia. We have 4 weeks to fill in, and we know how we're getting home. And we just gradually filled it in as we went. Sometimes we book stuff. It's like you book Hong Kong lodging pretty far in advance, but we didn't book anything for a lot of the other places. We just figured it out when we went. So that's just one kind of like little mini trip that we did and how it sort of comes together.
Well, that's neat. We had a traveler on our show recently who made the point that travel is not that hard to do if you don't have too many preset expectations. The point was, he would say, instead of saying, I want to go to Greece, let's see how I can get there, he would go and look and say, where could I go for a little bit of money, a lesser amount of money that I would like to see? And so he would go choose the trip that matched the budget instead of choosing a trip and then trying to come up with a budget for it. Do you find yourselves working that way?
Very frequently. I mean, like Julie mentions pillars, and it's like we know we're going to be in Chamonix, France at the end of August because I'm running a race there. But like what we do between the end of July and the end of August, a lot of what we've done, it's like we'll go on Skyscanner or Google Flights and say, we know we're going to be flying from here, and there's an option to say fly anywhere, everywhere, or something like that. And it'll show you all the prices for all the flights. You know, and we try and just do direct flights. So it's like, where's a cheap direct flight that is somewhere that's cool, And, that's often how we end up picking where do we go.
Well, how's that worked out for you? Because a lot of people have dreams. It's my dream trip is to go to, I don't know, let's say New Zealand. My dream trip's to go to New Zealand, and I'm going to have to do it and fit it into my schedule, and then how much money is it going to take, and I want to stay in this kind of a hotel and all of that. That's a different mindset. So when you just kind of say, well, let's go somewhere cool with the resources that we find, how does that change the dynamic?
I think that because we are sort of living what we would think of as like a permanent nomadic lifestyle, it's never about like, oh, there are these dream places we want to go. Like when we go places, we kind of live normal life in each place. I mean, yeah, we'll do a tourist thing here and there, but we went to Melbourne, Australia for a week, and it was like we just lived there. It was great. We went grocery shopping and ran on the paths with all the local runners, and we loved it there. And it wasn't like we had always dreamed to go to Melbourne. I think part of it's just like a mental framework of thinking like, hopefully we can do this for a long time, and it's our lifestyle. We can go. The world's huge. There are tons of cool places, and like what opportunities are available right now, and that's where we go.
Cool. So is the world a bigger place than you thought it was when you started out?
I'll let Julie answer that. She's got a funny look in her face.
Shrug my shoulders. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever questioned if it was bigger or smaller. Or, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever thought about that.
I mean, there's way more out there than what a lot of our friends or family or just people in general probably realize. I mean, there's people living normal life all around the world right now that you don't realize. And Julie used to always say something about like, we lived in Ethiopia for 6 months a long time ago, and like right now at this very moment, someone's like buying some tomatoes at a little market over in Addis Ababa, and like it's just normal life over there like it is over here. But so in some respects it's small, and that a lot of it's the same anywhere you go. But then it's also huge because there are just so many places to go and so many cool things to do, so many mountain ranges to run in. And so it's like, I don't think we could exhaust the list. It's never like, oh man, we did all the stuff we did. Which ones do we want to circle back on and do again?
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
Everyone loves TV Dad.
On the next TV Dad, presented by Progressive, TV Dad explains becoming a man.
Son, it's time we had the talk.
Okay, TV Dad.
You know, drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds.
Oh, is that why my voice is changing?
That's a question for your health teacher.
Listen to your TV Dad. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
92% of households that join Peloton early in the year are still active a year later.
Yeah, if you like cycling to EDM.
Not just EDM. Try cycling to Broadway hits, take a scenic hike in Iceland on our treadmill, or roll to some 80s jams.
Because I have so much free time.
Whether you have 30 minutes or just 5, Peloton can fit any schedule. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton tread, row, or bikes risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
Well, I find sometimes that you go to a location, and when you get there, you start finding out about the stuff that's in that general area, right? That you wouldn't know about from a distance. And that makes that location have so many more details that you want to then do and see.
Yeah. I think what I find more fascinating is not so much like whether it's bigger or smaller than I thought. I find more fascinating what's like the norm for people, like everywhere else, like to see what's normal for other people and what's so different from what we call norms. Like I just love going to towns and seeing like I don't know, like how most people either don't have cars or like most people walk everywhere or like in small villages and like in Ethiopia, like the little vegetable stands, like that's the norm. Or I don't know how to say it really well. I find that the most fascinating piece is like, or just seeing how like different weather has made certain places the way they are, because they've like adapted to what their weather is, or
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it really well.
No, I'm getting the picture. I think it's awesome.
That's what I find fascinating, is not so much the size, just how people live. And like every time I think like there's a norm, I go to somewhere new and I'm just like, wow, people do it this way. Like that's just so different. I don't know, but it works in so many different ways.
From your travels, have you found new ways of doing things that you kind of adapted into your own lifestyle and said, you know what, we learned this in this place, never would have thought of that, but this really works for us?
I want to say yes, but I can't think of any specific examples. It's hard for me to say yes without being able to point to something.
I want to say yes, too.
Well, what about a favorite food or something like that? You see, I never would have thought of that being a regular part of our diet, but now we like to have that a few times a month.
Oh, man, if I could find dosa and idli. I mean, we've never even been to southern India, but we got a lot of it in Malaysia. We learned to love southern Indian food. We like food from all over the world now, so I think maybe a way to say yes, it has definitely impacted us. It's just that, like, when we do things that are different than how things are done in the States, or just like how our families or friends do things, I don't know, it doesn't feel like, I don't feel at all bad about it. I'm like, no, this works for us. Like Pablo shares a bed with us, and he loves it, and we love it. I don't think it's kind of like the normal American thing, but like there are parts of the world where it's totally normal that like families share a bed and they like we go to bed at the same time, and like it's not normal maybe here, but like I don't feel bad about it because I don't know, it works and we see it work in other places in the world. So I don't know, I think it's helped desensitize us to being different in a lot of ways.
I experienced something over this last year, and I want to throw it out there for you guys to kind of unpack. When we moved to Gunnison from the Front Range of Colorado, then it required that we go back to the Denver Front Range quite often. And we were going back and forth so much that I lost a sense of home, lost a sense of place. And I know now that you have lived this lifestyle for several years, and you really don't have the sense of what home is, right? So how does that feel, first of all? And do you think it's a positive thing or a negative thing? And what has come out of that that's kind of surprising?
Julie's looking at me like, I'm like, come on, Julie, it's your turn to answer. And she's looking at me like, no, go ahead, Matt.
Well, let's break it down to just the first one. You guys, how does it feel to travel a lot, to be in different places a lot?
I would say, a friend asked me this. She's like, does it get lonely? And I would say sometimes it does. Like, our sense of home is more of like, who are our closest friends that we wish we could like spend more time with? For me, that makes me feel more at home, is surrounding with like the coolest people we know, like our friend Dion, the one that we went to Indonesia with. Like, she's going to come to Chamonix. And I feel like when we spend that week with her, that will feel like home. I don't really care to spend the time in Seattle with her where she lives, but like to be with her to me is more feeling like home. And then I would say like when we're on the road, the one thing that like we carry in our kit that makes me feel some sense of like home and normalcy and routine is our little AeroPress coffee maker. Like, I love that part of my day where we get up and we heat up water and we make that cup of coffee. It's like, this is like my daily routine that I get to keep no matter what. I can always find ground coffee, and like that makes me feel like my routine is there and we have a home if I have my coffee.
I really love that. I love the idea that home is the people you're with, not necessarily the location where you are. And then routines become an anchor as well. Something that, so in travel, a lot of people, they can't wait to go on vacation. They go on vacation, and after a couple of weeks, they're like, I can't wait to go home, right? The travel starts to feel tiresome. But how do you get past that? How do you get to the point where you say, no, you are home. Not here is home, but you are home, and this is normal for us.
I would say there's a big part of it, and we've gotten better and better about this over the years, is that there's kind of a nuts and bolts answer, but we structure our travel in a way that it's not so tiring. I would say when Pavo was less than a year old, we left when he was 4 months old and went to Mexico and then went to Europe. And we were so exhausted by like the end of that first year and a half of traveling that we just didn't want to move anymore. And I feel like one of the big things we've learned is like we stay in a place for at least a week usually. We often don't stay with friends or family for very long periods. We like to have our own home and our own space. I mean, it's fun. Like we will stay with people from time to time because it's fun. But like in general, like we stay for a place for a week or two. We only travel on certain days of the week where they're generally less busy days from a work perspective. And we don't feel any sense of obligation like, oh, we're in Greece, we're in Athens, we need to go to the Parthenon, or all the different checkpoints on the tourist list. It's like, yeah, we'll see which ones kind of fit in that have a cool kid activity for Pavo that logistically aren't exhausting. You know, a lot of people when they have vacation, they want to cram as much into that week or two that they can. And I think just having the framework of thinking like, no, this is just normal life. Like, I don't want to be exhausted. I want to go to bed at a normal time and like get my work done and get my running in. And like, if I can fit in some other cool stuff, awesome. But like, just the experience of living sort of normal life in all these different places is really, it's a eye-opening, valuable experience. So I feel like we've just sort of like chilled out a little bit, and we don't feel like we have to cram a lot in. And usually when we start cramming stuff in, we get tired and worn down. And we're like, ugh, we gotta chill out again.
I love it. So it's kind of a matter of, instead of going somewhere to do something, it's more a matter of living wherever you are.
Yeah, just having the experience of like living for a week in Bucharest or living for a week in Bali in Ubud or a week in Sydney. You know, like you get a lot just from like walking around Sydney for a week. You meet cool people, you talk to cool people, it's gorgeous. And then after a week, it's like, I can stay here another week, but I'm ready to move. And then you go to like to Auckland and then down to Rotorua and you spend a week there. And you're like, man, this is a cool place. I had some cool runs. And now we have a flight to San Francisco. San Francisco is great. And, you know, you just sort of like fill in, you know, we make a little Google map with most places we go. We sort of like pinpoint some of the highlight stuff that we want to see or do. And if they get done, cool. But otherwise, you know, we're there and we just live normal life in a new place every week.
I love it. So Julie, tell me about stuff. Because I know that to make this lifestyle possible, you had to change your approach to things. How do you manage stuff in your life?
It still accumulates even without trying. But we always call it like rounds of cuts of our stuff. And so this last time when we left Seattle, we did a big round of cuts. And so we have our stuff down to 7 Rubbermaid tubs, I believe, right? And a friend's garage. So we're lucky that a friend's letting us keep our stuff there. So yeah, we have all that stuff down to that. And like, that's mainly just, I don't even know what's in there. It's probably stuff we don't even need. You know, we'll do another cut when we get home. But then like on the go, our end goal was to each have a carry-on, like one Osprey backpack carry-on. And so Pablo has his own. He can't carry it, obviously, but he has his own, and we each have our own, like, Osprey. Pablo's is 40 liters. Ours is 46. 46 feels a little big, but that's, like, the nuts and bolts answer of that is we each have 3 carry-ons. And then I'd say it's, like, a constant battle of, like, not accumulating, but it's tough because with kids, as you know, toys only last for so long in terms of, like, keeping their attention. And so we're constantly getting new like books. Like I've found that like Target has really great like dollar books. And so I don't feel guilty just passing them on or recycling them if we use them for a week or two in their new place and then we're flying again. So we're like, all right, time to shed the books or time to shed these like dollar cars that Pablo, you know, has used for a while. And then clothing, like I feel like thru-hiking helped us in the sense that we are really good about like whatever we carry has to have a purpose and like or multi-purposes and like pack down well, be light. And it's still hard not to want to like accumulate more clothes for sure. But I don't know. If we get to like pre-flight and we're like, we got too much stuff, I don't care. Just going to Goodwill and taking a bag to Goodwill. Like, it's hard to like lose that, or it's hard to get rid of that like strong connection you feel with your stuff. But once you do it over and over again, it gets easier to just be like, nope, taking this bag to Goodwill, won't miss it in a week. Like, I won't even remember I had it.
Yeah. It's hard to get rid of it in the moment.
Yeah.
But then like a few days later, like, I don't remember when I got rid of that. Like, that was a cool thing, but I don't remember getting rid of it. It's like when they're gone, and it's not a big deal.
So, Matt, I'm going to ask you this on the philosophical side. You know, especially Americans, we get so caught up in stuff. We assign value to it that may or may not be healthy. You know, it depends. But philosophically, when you took on a nomadic lifestyle, the first stuff that you gave up was that sense of permanent home. But then another stuff you had to give up was the sense of permanent things that you could keep and say, I'm going to buy this and have it for 10 years. You know, now you're living a lifestyle where it's more transient. Nothing's really permanent, and it can't be. What are the benefits to that in other aspects of life? How do you think that's impacted you as far as emotional or cognitive, domains?
I would say that the biggest positive impacts are that our focus on the things that we have is way more about function. I mean, there gets to be some emotional attachment. Like Pablo's got some cars that he's had for the last 2 years, and it would sort of sadden me to get rid of Pink car, his little ice cream truck car, but like for the most part, it's just like these are things that help us live our day-to-day life and get stuff done. They're not like a thing that's associated with who we are or our worth. And it puts the focus way more on what are we doing for our days that makes us feel good, and what are we doing for Pablo that makes his life good. And so the focus is not about our things. Our things are means of getting things done, but the benefit is that like the focus then is on like our day-to-day living and making good decisions and trying to be happy and take good care of each other. And so I think that's the big philosophically. It's just that our focus isn't about things. It's about our life and our experiences.
I love that. Do you think that in general it has made you happier?
It's a tough question because, I mean, happiness is a really tough one to define. And for me, I would just say like, well, I don't know. Julie, what do you think? Because I'm an optimist. I'm generally happy anywhere, so it's hard for me to say am I happier or less.
I would say it's made my life easier in the sense that I'm a really terrible decision maker. Like I'm like, oh, do I do this or do I that? And I like weigh my decisions for 15 minutes of which shirt to wear. But I only have 3 shirts, so really, how long can I take deciding which shirt to wear? So, like I don't have to really decide. It's like, well, the white one's dirty, and I have 2 gray ones, and so it's this gray one or that gray one. So. Like, how many decisions do I really have to make? I have 3 sets of running clothes, 3 t-shirts, 2 shorts, 1 pair of pants, a pair of tights, a fleece, a puffy, and a raincoat, and rain pants. Like, that's it. So, and like 6 pairs of underwear in case we don't have laundry for like 6 days. But, so it's really easy decision making. So for me, it's easier because I hate making decisions, and it doesn't make me more sad to make decisions, but it just gives me more anxiety to make decisions. So the fact that I don't have to spend that time, or like same with Pavo, like he has like 2 shirts, 2 shorts, 2 long sleeves, and so I don't even have to decide on him. So I would say that part's nicer for me.
Well, I think it sounds liberating.
Another fun side effect is like we get new stuff all the time. It's like you have 2 shirts at a time, but then like, oh, you get a new shirt from a race. And you're like, I like this one better than one of the 2 that I have. And so I ditch one of the ones that I had in favor of the new one. And Pablo gets new toys and stuff because we just keep cycling them in and out. And rather than just like piling them all up and keeping them all, it's like, oh, we pass that one on to so-and-so who we're visiting, and we give this to so-and-so. And I don't know, it's nice. You get new. I feel like we always get new stuff, which is fun. I mean, not like in an expensive sort of like we're just spending money frivolously, but it's like, you get new stuff frequently, and it's kind of fun.
It's fresh that way.
Another philosophical piece is getting rid of that fear that you're going to be caught somewhere and not have something that you might need. Like, we have a good kit in the sense that we're ready for like warm weather, chilly weather. We've got puffies and rain stuff, but they all pack down really well. But like, if I get to somewhere and it's like, I need a really good pair of gloves, I'm just going to buy them. Like, I'm not going to carry something for 2 years and been thinking like, I might need this really nice pair of gloves. Like, so I feel like it's getting rid of that fear that you're going to be caught without something, because you're always like, there's always going to be a place to buy something, like, or there's always Amazon, or there's always some way to get things. People are going to find a way to sell you something. So, but people are always willing to sell you something. So trying to get rid of that fear, but it's like I'd say it's like the Boy Scout fear of like not being prepared, but,
yeah, just have a credit card with no foreign transaction fees and you're fine.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, and the thing that you have to realize too is that things that you're going to need because of a location, generally people in that location have solved that problem. They're going to have a solution when you get there.
Exactly. That's where we found the best running gloves were in Chamonix, because like they're used to needing like wet weather running gloves. So that's where we found them. So.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Really cool. Well, congratulations to the two of you. I think that your lifestyle for someone who's not doing it, it sounds romantic and liberating and fun. And I know that for people that live this sort of a lifestyle, it has its own set of dynamics, right? But you're doing something unique. Most people aren't living the way that you live, and it is just so enchanting to think about. And congratulations for pulling it off. I don't think that's an easy thing. It had to take some real effort and determination.
Thanks.
Thank you. It doesn't feel like it. It feels just like normal life. It's like you make your decisions, you have your option, the menu to choose from, and you think about which one's the best option, and then you pick it.
And it was never flipping a switch to the lifestyle. Any life you're in, like you look back and you're like, oh yeah, this series of events led to this point in time. But it was never like a flip of a switch kind of thing. It's always just gradual, like under the surface, things happening, and then suddenly you're like, oh wow, I guess I am living this life right now.
Yeah.
So
we've been doing it since we were 20 years old together. So it just keeps evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Someday, hopefully, it's going to evolve to a sailing trip around the world on a catamaran. I'm still working on getting everyone excited about that one. Someday, we're going to get that one in.
Matt's just sneaking that in.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll have you back on when you do that and talk about cruising, because that would be a whole other conversation. Let's talk a little bit about how people can follow you. You have a blog called Urbiville.com. The coaching site is teamrunrun.com. And then, Julie, you have books on Amazon. Tell us briefly what you have there.
I just have a book on each of the long trails, on the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and then the Continental Divide Trail. So, like personal journey kind of books, like not biographies, but just stories about how it was living on the trails and going from Mexico to Canada or Georgia to Maine, each of the trails. So
nice. So it's not a how-to guide as much as it is a memoir. This is what the experience was.
Yeah, totally. Not a guide, but it's memoir, personal journey,
and I can throw out there for anyone that's interested. The first 5 days of every month on Amazon, if you use a Kindle or get the Kindle version, we offer one of the books for free for the first 5 days of the month. So if you ever want to read any of them, we cycle through which one it is every month, but like one of the books is free for 5 days a month.
Yeah.
So we'll encourage people to get the free ones if they're interested. They're free, the first 5 days.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. So this episode will be coming out around the beginning of July, so it ought to be timely then.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And again, teamrunrun.com, Urbiville.com. What else? Where else should people go to catch up with you guys?
That's it.
I mean, we're on as a company. We're on like Twitter and Instagram and all that, and Facebook. But so we're at Team Run Run Coach on Twitter, and Team Run for Instagram. But that's all like running related and sharing the success stories of our teammates and our coaches. But I would say if anyone's interested in getting connected with a great coach, we have tons of cool coaches. So we're happy to hear from people if they want to get into the cool ultra sport. We got a lot of good mentors if people are interested.
Well, I know that I have about 500 more questions about running and being healthy and avoiding injuries and what to wear and how to do it. And that's what people can get from your coaching, I'm sure. So if you're interested in running out there, go to teamrunrun.com and find out more, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today. It's always fun to catch up with the three of you, although Pavo's not been on the show yet. Next time we're going to have Pavo there too. But it's it's so cool to hear about what you've been up to and where you've been. And again, thank you for your time.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. And for all the listeners out there, isn't it cool to think about living a lifestyle like that? Wow. Until the next show, figure out what your cool is and get out there and have some fun.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
The Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE. It's electrified. So you can boogie woogie woogie into the forest. Boogie woogie woogie through the mud. Or boogie woogie woogie to work, where you boogie woogie woogie down the hall to your boss's office to tell him you quit. Sure got the boogie. Then you boogie woogie woogie to the elevator as he boogie woogie woogies after you, begging, please, take me with you. Boogie. The electrified Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE. Learn more at Jeep.com. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
This week at Macy's, discover great deals on spring updates for you and your home. Refresh your look with Michael Kors handbags, shoes, and more, $250 and under. Get 50 to 70% off suits, blazers, and pants for him. And shop select great value small appliances, $99.95 and under. Plus, get contact-free curbside pickup or pickup in store today at Macy's. Details at Macys.com/pickup. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.